At 3 a.m. tonight, your body will be a full degree colder than it is right now. Not because your room is cold, not because you kicked off the blankets. Your brain will have actively cooled you, pumped heat out of your core through the blood vessels in your hands and feet, dropped your internal temperature from 37 degrees down to 36 on purpose. This happens every night. It has happened every night of your life, and most people have no idea it occurs. By the end of this video, you will understand why your body initiates this drop, what it means that the cooling begins 2 hours before you fall asleep, and what happens at the exact moment your temperature hits its minimum. Because at that minimum, 3 a.m., something else happens simultaneously. Your cortisol bottoms out. Your blood pressure reaches its lowest point. Your heart rate slows to its daily minimum, and your body temporarily loses the ability to regulate its own temperature entirely. You become, for brief periods during the night, functionally cold-blooded. This is the Dirac way. Most people think body temperature is fixed, 37 degrees Celsius, 98.6 Fahrenheit, a constant, like a thermostat set to one number. It is not constant. It never has been. Your core body temperature follows a sine wave, a 2-4-hour oscillation controlled by a cluster of roughly 20,000 neurons sitting directly above the point where your optic nerves cross inside your skull. The suprachiasmatic nucleus, the SCN, your master clock. This structure was identified as the circadian pacemaker through lesion experiments. Destroy the SCN, and the temperature rhythm vanishes. Restore it, and the rhythm returns. The clock is localized in this one structure, smaller than a grain of rice. The SCN does not respond to whether you are tired. It does not respond to whether you are sleeping. It generates its own rhythm, entrained to light entering the eye through specialized retinal cells that do not contribute to vision. Their only job is to tell the clock what time it is. And the clock imposes that timing on every system in the body, including temperature. The curve looks like this. Core temperature begins rising in the early morning, around 6 a.m. It climbs through the day. It peaks in the late afternoon, somewhere between 5 and 7 p.m. at roughly 37 to 37.2 degrees Celsius. Then it begins to fall. The decline accelerates through the evening. By midnight, you are well into the descent. And at approximately 3 to 4 a.m., core temperature reaches its nadir, its lowest point, roughly 36 to 36.2 degrees, 1 full degree below the afternoon peak. Then the curve reverses. Temperature begins climbing again, and by the time you wake up, you are already on the rising slope, heading back toward the afternoon maximum. This cycle repeats every 24 hours. Regardless of whether you sleep, the curve persists even in people kept in constant conditions, constant light, constant temperature, constant posture. The oscillation is endogenous. It comes from the clock itself. Your body does not cool at night because you are lying still. It cools because the clock says it is time to cool. But here is the detail that changes how you understand sleep itself. Sleep onset does not occur at the temperature minimum. It occurs during the decline. Specifically, the propensity to fall asleep reaches its maximum approximately 4 to 5 hours before the temperature nadir. You fall asleep on the downslope, not at the bottom. And waking the natural end of sleep occurs on the upslope, approximately 2 to 3 hours after the minimum. Your body wakes you as the temperature is climbing, not when it is finished falling. The temperature drop is not a consequence of sleep. It is a prerequisite for it. And the mechanism by which your body executes this drop is, when you examine it closely, extraordinary. In 1999, a chronobiologist named Kurt Kreutzsche published a one-page paper in Nature. The title sounds like advice from a grandmother. Warm feet promote the rapid onset of sleep. But the finding beneath it was precise enough to rewrite sleep medicine. Kreutzsche measured a variable called the distal to proximal skin temperature gradient, the difference between the temperature of your extremities, your hands, your feet, and the temperature of your torso. And he found that this gradient was the single best predictor of how quickly a person would fall asleep. Better than core body temperature itself, better than heart rate, better than melatonin levels, better than how tired the person reported feeling. The mechanism: your brain initiates sleep by dilating blood vessels in your hands and feet. Warm blood from the core flows outward toward the skin surface of your extremities, where it radiates heat into the environment. Your hands get warmer, your feet get warmer, and your core gets colder. Your body is using your hands and feet as radiators, dumping thermal energy from the core into the environment through the skin of your extremities. Your body does not fall asleep by shutting down. It falls asleep by turning on a cooling system. This is why your hands and feet feel warm just before you fall asleep, even though the rest of you is cooling. And this is why wearing socks to bed can reduce the time it takes to fall asleep. Not because socks warm you, because they accelerate the vasodilation and push the core temperature downslope faster. In 2000, Croce showed that a skin temperature difference of less than 1 degree, 0.78 degrees, changed sleep onset latency by 26%. And critically, the thermoregulatory changes take place before sleep onset. The cooling initiates sleep. Sleep does not initiate the cooling. You have been falling asleep your entire life and never realized it was a thermal event. Now, the SCN does not act alone. It has a chemical accomplice. Melatonin blood levels begin rising around 8 p.m., triggered by the SCN, signaling the pineal gland as ambient light decreases. They climb through the evening, peak at approximately 3 a.m., then decline to baseline by 8 a.m. Now look at the temperature curve again. Core temperature begins falling around 9 p.m. It accelerates its decline through the night. It reaches its nadir at approximately 3 a.m. Then it rises toward morning. The two curves are mirror images, exact mirror images. Melatonin goes up, temperature goes down. They peak and trough at precisely the same time. 3 a.m. This is not coincidence. And the relationship is not merely correlational. In 1992, Angelo Cagnacci at the University of Modena published a paper that established the causal link. He showed that melatonin is directly responsible for roughly 40% of the entire circadian temperature amplitude. He demonstrated this with two complementary experiments. First, when you administer melatonin to people during the day when it is not normally secreted, core body temperature drops by 0.3 to 0.4 degrees Celsius. Second, when you suppress nocturnal melatonin secretion using bright light exposure, core body temperature rises by the same magnitude. The amplitude of the temperature rhythm shrinks by approximately 40% when melatonin is removed from the equation. Melatonin is not just a sleep hormone. It is a cooling hormone. It acts on peripheral vascular receptors to promote vasodilation in the hands, feet, and other distal skin regions. It does this without affecting heart rate, without changing cerebral blood flow. It specifically selectively opens the radiators in your extremities. The mechanism of melatonin's hypothermic effect is heat loss, not metabolic suppression. It does not slow your metabolism to cool you. It opens the thermal vents and lets the heat escape. The SCN signals the pineal gland. Melatonin opens the blood vessels. Heat dumps from the core. Temperature falls. Sleep becomes possible. But here is where this gets stranger. During NREM sleep, the deep, slow wave stages, your body still regulates temperature. If the room gets cold, you shiver. If it gets warm, you sweat. The hypothalamic thermostat is running. You are homothermic, warm-blooded. The system works. During REM sleep, the thermostat turns off. This was first demonstrated by Pierluigi Parmigiani at the University of Bologna in 1967. He exposed cats to cold and warm thermal loads during different sleep stages and observed that shivering and panting, the two primary thermoregulatory responses, were present during REM sleep and completely absent during REM sleep. Gone, not reduced, absent. Subsequent experiments went further. Researchers directly heated and cooled the preoptic area of the hypothalamus, the brain region that functions as the body's thermostat, and found that during REM sleep, this region simply did not respond. The same thermal stimulus that would trigger an immediate thermoregulatory correction during wakefulness or NREM sleep produced no response during REM. In wakefulness, the preoptic area detects a temperature increase of less than 1 degree and immediately initiates sweating and vasodilation. During NREM sleep, it does the same thing. During REM sleep, you can heat it by several degrees and nothing happens. No sweating, no vasodilation, no shivering in the cold condition. The thermostat is not malfunctioning, it is offline. Your body, during REM sleep, becomes poikilothermic, cold-blooded. Like a reptile, your brain voluntarily surrenders control of your body temperature. If the room is cold, you cool. If the room is warm, you warm. No correction. The thermoregulatory system that runs during every other state of consciousness simply stops during REM. Nobody knows why. This has been confirmed across cats, rabbits, rats, and humans, studied for over 50 years. The mechanism remains a mystery. But the timing makes it consequential. REM sleep episodes get longer as the night progresses. The first REM period might last 10 minutes. By the end of the night, REM periods can stretch to 30 or 40 minutes. The longest episodes of thermoregulatory suspension coincide with the lowest point of the temperature curve, 3 a.m. The temperature nadir, the melatonin peak, and the longest stretch during which your body has no active mechanism for defending its own internal temperature. And it is not just temperature that bottoms out at this hour. At 3 a.m., cortisol, the hormone that mobilizes your emergency stress response, raises blood glucose, sharpens alertness, and prepares your body for physical action, is at its lowest level of the entire 2-4-hour cycle. The cortisol awakening response, the rapid pre-dawn surge that will eventually jolt you toward wakefulness, will not begin until roughly 30 to 60 minutes before you naturally wake. At 3 a.m., that surge is still hours away. Your stress response system is running at minimum capacity. Blood pressure is at its nocturnal nadir. This is called nocturnal dipping, a normal reduction of 10 to 20% from daytime values. At 3 a.m., the dip is at its deepest. Your cardiovascular system is running at its lowest pressure and lowest output. Heart rate is at its slowest. Respiration is at its shallowest during NREM and irregular during REM. Your immune system has shifted into a specific nocturnal configuration. Inflammatory cytokines signaling molecules that coordinate tissue repair and immune surveillance peak during the early hours of the morning. This is when the body does its deepest repair work. Tissue damage from the day is being addressed. Immune memories are being consolidated. But the trade-off is that the acute response arm of the immune system, the ability to mount an immediate defense against a new threat, is relatively suppressed. Your body at 3 a.m. is running a single program: maintain and repair. It is not prepared for a cardiac emergency. It is not prepared for a respiratory crisis. It is not prepared for a sudden demand on the cardiovascular system. And the mortality data reflects this precisely. 60% of fatal incidents occur between 2 a.m. and 8 a.m., with a peak around 4 to 5 a.m. Sudden cardiac death shows a statistically significant circadian pattern, with studies documenting the nadir of ventricular tachyarrhythmias between 2 and 3 a.m., followed by a sharp increase in the morning hours as the body transitions from its repair state to its active state. The transition itself, the rapid cortisol surge, the blood pressure spike, the heart rate acceleration of waking, is one of the most dangerous moments in the 2-4-hour cycle. Your body chose this configuration, not consciously, evolutionarily. It chose to consolidate vulnerability into a single window, cool down, suppress cortisol, lower blood pressure, drop heart rate, commit fully to repair and restoration, accept the risk, take the trade, repair over readiness, depth over defense, cooling over vigilance. And the signal that initiates the entire cascade, the first domino, is the temperature drop that begins 6 hours before the vulnerability window opens. The evolutionary logic is not difficult to reconstruct. For most of human history, the night was dangerous. Predators, cold. No shelter beyond what you could build. The body's solution was not to stay vigilant all night, that is metabolically impossible. Instead, it consolidated vulnerability into a single window. Cool down, suppress cortisol, lower blood pressure, drop heart rate, commit fully to repair and restoration, and do it during the darkest, stillest hours when the probability of successful defense is lowest anyway. The trade was accept maximum vulnerability for a few hours in exchange for maximum restoration. Accept the risk of 3 a.m. in exchange for the benefits of deep sleep. For 100,000 years, this worked. The temperature curve was synchronized to the light-dark cycle. Melatonin tracked the night, and the body's repair window aligned with the environment's stillness. Then we invented electric light. Now, here is where this becomes directly relevant to modern life. When you look at a screen at 10 p.m., the blue enriched light hits those melanopsin-containing retinal ganglion cells, the same cells that entrain the SCN to the light-dark cycle, and the signal they send is unambiguous. It is still daytime. The SCN responds by suppressing melatonin secretion from the pineal gland. This suppression is dose-dependent and wavelength-specific. Blue light in the 460 to 480 nanometer range is most potent. And because melatonin drives roughly 40% of the circadian temperature amplitude, suppressing it does not just delay sleepiness, it flattens the temperature curve. The core temperature drop that should be well underway by 10 p.m. is blunted. The vasodilation in your hands and feet is reduced. The heat dump is incomplete. Your core stays warmer than it should be. The distal to proximal gradient, the gradient Croce showed, is the best predictor of sleep onset fails to develop fully. And the consequence is not merely that you take longer to fall asleep. It is that your entire sleep architecture changes. Less time in deep, slow-wave sleep, more time in light sleep, more nighttime awakenings, reduced sleep efficiency. Because the thermal signal that drives the transition into deep sleep, the falling core temperature, was never strong enough to do its job properly. Insomnia patients show exactly this pattern. Studies have found that insomniacs have significantly flatter evening temperature curves compared to healthy sleepers. The drop exists, but it is shallow. The radiators never fully opened. The core never cooled enough. And the brain never received the thermal signal that says it is safe to enter deep sleep now. Think about how many people lie in bed, exhausted, staring at the ceiling, unable to fall asleep. They blame stress. They blame anxiety. They blame their racing thoughts. And in many cases, the problem is simpler and more physical than any of that. Their core temperature is half a degree too high. The blood vessels in their feet did not dilate enough. The heat dump did not complete. And the SCN's sleep initiation program stalled because the thermal prerequisite was not met. They are not failing to relax. Their bodies are failing to cool. For shift workers, the problem is even worse. The circadian temperature rhythm keeps running on solar time, even when the sleep schedule rotates. The body tries to cool and initiate sleep while the person works under fluorescent lights, and it tries to warm and promote wakefulness while the person tries to sleep during the day. The curve and the sleep window desynchronize, and the body cannot serve both masters. One last detail. It closes the circle. The hot bath effect, documented by Horn and Reed in 1985, hot water 1 to 2 hours before bed forces massive vasodilation. When you step out, those dilated vessels radiate heat from your core at an accelerated rate. Your core drops faster and deeper than the natural curve. A hot bath does not warm you into drowsiness. It cools you. The heat is the mechanism of cooling, and the cooling is the mechanism of sleep. You began this video hearing that your body temperature drops by a full degree every night at 3 a.m. Now you understand what that drop actually is. It is not passive. It is not incidental. It is not a side effect of lying still in a dark room. It is a coordinated physiological program initiated by a 20,000 neuron clock in the anterior hypothalamus, executed through vasodilation of blood vessels in your extremities, amplified by melatonin secreted from the pineal gland, and timed to create the specific thermal conditions that allow deep sleep to occur. At the bottom of the curve at 3 a.m., your body enters its most vulnerable and most restorative state simultaneously. Temperature at its lowest, cortisol at its lowest, thermal regulation suspended during REM. Every night, your body makes a trade. Repair over readiness, depth over defense. The 1 degree drop is the price of admission to deep sleep. And the physics started at sunset.